My name is Ulysses, but everybody calls me Sony, and today we're going to be going over the top 4 fretboard systems that would help you out on the guitar. If you needed PDFs, they are totally for free on my website. You could download them. I don't even want your email. Just go get them. Let's talk about 3 notes per string. 3 notes per string is organized around the idea that if I can play 3 notes for every string, I can move faster through the scale, especially if I'm economy picking. Alternate picking is fantastic, but if you economy pick with 3 notes per string, you're going to go really fast. So, 3 notes per string, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and backwards is just the same. Fantastic for speed. The original system had 7 patterns in it, which makes it a bit of a smaller system because now there's only 7 patterns to memorize. But I kind of added some more on, which I call new, 3 notes per string, which makes it more feasible for us to come up with legato patterns based off the string instead of just being stuck in those original 7 patterns. So there's a lot more patterns if you download the PDFs on my website, but if you want the original one, it's only 7. Some of the drawbacks. One drawback is it's hard to phrase in 3 notes per string, at least when you're improvising. You're going so fast, it's kind of hard to keep up with where you're at. It's just too many notes happening at the same time. As well as it's hard to see where all your arpeggios are at, where your landing tones. We have to know where those are at because that's where our phrasing's coming out of. If we know where those landing tones are, we can sound better. But because there's so many notes, it's hard to keep track of. Trying to change them, if I'm trying to go from an Ionian to a Dorian, it's really hard to change because, again, too many notes. As well as, there's no chord part of this system. This system is purely about speed. So if you're into shredding, 3 notes per string is definitely where you want to be. The next system we're going to be talking about is GPS, or Guitar Positioning System. Now, I was introduced to this through Pepper Brown's YouTube channel, and I thought this was a fantastic system. And as I did more research on it, I heard a rumor that this is the system Mick Goodrick used while he was alive, and we all want to copy Mick Goodrick. The idea behind this system is, as I'm playing the scale, I'm able to see exactly where all the notes are in any given position. So I just played the G major scale, starting with my first finger, right, on the 2nd fret, even though G is on the 3rd fret. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the exact same scale, but I'm going to move the high E and high B up a little bit so it can extend out a little bit more. Now this is fantastic because now I can see exactly where all the notes are on the fretboard depending on my key. And it doesn't matter which finger I'm starting on, I can still see where all the notes are. I'm going to be comfortable with every position with every finger. Great news, right? Only problem, there are a lot of patterns. There are at least 14 patterns, and that's a lot, okay? But that's a good thing because that ends up being a reason why you have all of the fretboard memorized. You know every little detail of it, and you're seeing how it changes. Another problem is it doesn't have a chord side. So, again, it's more about soloing in this case, which is probably why Mick Goodrick was so emphatic about learning scales on one string. If you have GPS on your hands and you could play a scale on one string, you're going to be moving around the fretboard really efficiently, and I doubt there's going to be a style that you're not going to be able to control. Now let's talk about the infamous CAGED system, forced upon me by the Atlanta Institute of Music that I went to in the early 2000s, and it is a fantastic system. Let's talk about how it's organized. If I'm playing a chord, it's going to be based around particular shapes. So for example, I have a barred C chord. That's a D chord in a C shape. I now have a pattern that goes with that shape. Because of this, you're linking a chord shape with a pattern. You are now more likely to understand where you are at any given moment in time. You know where your arpeggios are, so you can phrase better, and you know what if you want to color the chord, you know where the numbers are to make sure that chord is the way you want it to be. Now, there's one particular drawback to this system. Although there are only 5 patterns, that means you have a lot of information per pattern. So if I'm trying to play changes or try to play smaller chords or anything along the lines, CAGED isn't going to lend itself to do that. So you're going to be able to learn CAGED really quickly if you decide to sit down and practice it. But when you're trying to phrase or trying to manipulate the system, it's not going to lend itself to that. So if you're looking for biggest bang for your buck, I need to know chords and scales really quickly. CAGED is what you're looking for. This last system, I feel to be the best system, is the Octave Systematic Approach. And it's based around the idea that I have to master octaves of a certain scale before I start to add on anything else. So for example, this is my highest C going to the next octave down. But there are different positions of that. I have to make sure I have those are all under control before I start adding anything on. And it's also based around pentatonics more than full scales, because the more I can control pentatonics, the more likely I am to be able to play in all genres. If I want to be able to play arpeggio, it's easier for me to shrink down from a pentatonic than a gigantic scale. Now there's also a chord side. I do have a chord going in one direction and a chord going in the other direction. So if I want to do chord melodies or start to use bigger block chords or try to do chord melodies, it's built into the system on how to develop that. Remember, in OSA, we're trying to master one octave and as few notes as possible so we can get the maximum out of it, more than most of these other systems, which are just trying to cram as many notes as possible. The reason why it's important that we make that distinction is because those other systems are about trying to digest tons and tons of notes, so that way we can play more notes per second. OSA is about phrasing and controlling those notes, so that way we can get the maximum out of it, more than just playing tons and tons of notes. Okay, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or death threats, leave them in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe if you want to have more information, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.